Okay, this is critique number 2 on the lesson before dying essays. This student we're calling student Y. And this student has started out effectively using MLA formatting there. See the correct heading over on the left-hand side and also on the right-hand side, last name and page number, number 1. Let's take a look at the title and see how that works there. How is Gaines effective as a storyteller? Okay, let's take a look at a couple things here. First of all, your unless we're talking about articles or minor words, you want to capitalize that. So how is Gaines effective? I should be capitalized, E should be capitalized, S should be capitalized in storyteller. But beyond that, instead of asking rhetorical questions, uh, the the title the title should give an indication as to Gaines' effectiveness as a storyteller through, and then uh, whatever reasons, through dialogue or literary elements, whatever. You give some sort of indirect reference to it right in your title. So let's see how it starts out. Have a nice hook here. The best writers in the world. By the way, the phrase hook. The hook is what a writer uses to catch the reader's attention as soon as possible and to hold on to it. So a good hook here. The best writers in the world could have the worst stories if they do not include stylistic elements in their work. So we see student Y has the thesis is marked in bold. In a novel, Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines, Gaines is effective as a storyteller for many reasons. Let's go ahead and look more closely at the thesis. First of all, if it's a novel, you do not use quotation marks. Quotation marks used for short stories. You either with a novel you underline it as the student has done, or you use italics, slanted writing there. Okay, remember that. Lesson Before Dying by Ernest J. Gaines. Okay, this is what students typically do. They give the name of the book by the author's full names. That's clumsy, it's unnecessary. It's not a critique of you as a person. It's just something that you have learned to do over the years. So in what you could do instead of that is simply say, in Ernest Gaines' A Lesson Before Dying, his effectiveness as a storyteller is shown by, and then go on. Well, let's take a look at the rest of that thesis statement, and it's good that it's a one-sentence thesis statement because that's what I would require. But we'll take a look at there's vagueness here. Effective as a story for many reasons. Well, that's not specific enough. Many reasons. If we were simply to settle for the for quote many reasons, you'd be writing forever and ever and ever. Let's just get rid of that ink, the ink layer there for a second. All right, go back to the writing. Now, you're writing about literature, so this is one of these things that not only English teachers but literary critics require you to do. If you're writing about literature, you write in the present tense only. So he used dialogue in his work that created meaning in the story. The character development in the novel was used to show the message of the novel. Lastly, allusions were used for readers to make connections and relate to the story. All in all, Gaines an effective storyteller because the elements of literary style in his works to make his stories more powerful and more enjoyable to read. I can already see a 5-paragraph essay coming here because the 3 elements of proof are laid out in the first paragraph, the introductory paragraph. But I've already referred to that in critique number 1. You need to break free of the 5-paragraph model to something else. But we see here what the elements of proof are for student Y. Character development, allusions, along with connections, and elements of literary style. First body paragraph, don't forget, 5 spaces in. Use of dialogue. Clear out the ink layer here. Go into, let's just go ahead and tab that over. Use of dialogue is an important stylistic element in literature because it adds meaning to stories. Now, that is true, but it's not targeted specifically to this book. What you have here is you have a general statement, and it bears no real relationship to the novel. Use of dialogue is an important stylistic element in literature because it adds meaning to stories. Yes, but what you need to do is to tie that in the sentence to a lesson before dying. So, lesson before dying reflects the important use of dialogue to add meaning to stories. If you don't do that, if you don't tie it right to the novel immediately, that means that you're going to be arguing the theoretical use of dialogue in all literature to add meaning to all stories. You don't want to go there. That's sometimes called a red herring. It's a misdirection. If I was marking on your ISU essay, I would simply write TS, or misdirecting topic sentence. The paragraph goes on to make some good points. In A Lesson Before Dying, Grant narrates the events as Jefferson reveals them. It's Grant's voice and point of view that tells the story of Jefferson. This is good. That was the main direction of the story, but there was a lot of dialogue, okay? There was, okay? There is a lot of dialogue within this key event that chooses the direction of the story that the story goes in. Again, stay in present tense. Stay in present tense. An example of dialogue that Gaines uses in the story was, I still know, and so on. There is much of the same here. A lot of good thoughts, simply some things which to you would seem very minor in terms of the conventions of writing formal literary papers. It's something that an English teacher would jump all over. And I know that many of you have been frustrated by what does an English teacher want? What does an English teacher want? Because when you get 2 or 3 different English teachers in a room, or you have different English teachers, you never get the same thing. You never get the same thing. So what I'm doing is I'm showing you the things that jump out at me. As well, let me just hop off of the essay for a second and move back to the course, and I want to point something out to you in the content browser, and I don't think that many of you have taken a look at this as much as you should. Underneath the folder Unit 6 Independent Study Project is the folder Writing Helps. Okay? Writing Helps, and there is also, whoops, the to-do and not to-do list. And that is a PDF file. It takes a little while to load. It's a PDF file that shows things that I get very, very picky about. So I strongly encourage you to take a look at that. And there's a section on thesis statements. There's a section on formal and informal writing. There's a number of things that you can use there. Let's go back to the essay. As I said, there are a lot of good analysis there. But the formatting that need to be careful of. Again, as I've mentioned before, your works cited should be centered on the page. And of course, since this is based on Lesson Before Dying, which is your primary source, that is the initial novel, you only have one work cited, and that's fine. And this ends the second critique.